Welcome everyone to today's Nature Tech in Action. We've renamed it actually this year to make it even more obvious as to what it is. This is a webinar that we hold about twice a month at the Nature Tech Collective to kind of recap what our members are doing in the space of nature tech, how they're using their technology in real world contexts, in specific locations. And the Nature Tech Collective is an incredible community of organizations in nature tech. Nature tech is very wide definition to us, but essentially they're the ones that are developing technology to measure and restore nature, or they're the ones that are making that restoration happen, or they're the ones that are funding any of that regeneration as well. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Paige. I'm the community lead at the Nature Tech Collective, and today we're diving into a story of great scale and longevity. Actually, we're joined by Katherine and Graeme Harvey from Taking Root, and for over 15 years, they've been at the forefront on one of the most difficult challenges in our sector. That's how to scale reforestation through smallholder farmers. We're often talking about the operational gap in nature tech, especially the difficulty of moving beyond small pilots to manage thousands of individual or disaggregated parcels of land. And in Nicaragua, Taking Root has started to bridge that gap. They're growing from a grassroots start to managing a project that's now over 4,600 farming families and almost 11,000 separate land parcels, which is incredible. So I'll let them tell the story. Katherine, Graeme, thank you so much for joining us. You've been a long-time member. And to start us off, actually, could you take us back to the kind of beginning 15 years ago? What was the original vision for Taking Root, and why was it so important to kind of focus specifically on smallholder farmers? Maybe for Katherine.
Perfect. And I'm also going to send in the chat a video that kind of captures our story too. But I always love talking about our origin story. And it really starts back in 2006 with our CEO. And he was studying smallholder economics at the time. And he was fascinated by one question of why do some people choose to grow trees while others don't? And he really went out and started beginning to ask that question within Nicaragua. And the response was actually super pragmatic. People weren't opposed to planting trees, but in most cases, they saw value in other things. So from cutting them down or using the land in different ways. And that's why you didn't see those trees in the landscape with smallholder farmers in Nicaragua. And so really that's where Taking Root really sprung from or sprouted from. And the goal of Taking Root was to create a model where trees are integrated into existing agriculture systems in ways that really bring value to the farmers, so that farmers not only see growing trees, but they also see it bringing value for future generations on that side of things. And we were super intentional in focusing on smallholder farmers for Taking Root. We understand their parcels are quite small, but collectively they represent the largest and one of the largest reforestation potentials on the planet. If we take a look at smallholders farmers, we have around 500 million farmers globally. And that equates to roughly the size of Europe that they're managing in land. And if we only planted on a portion of that agriculture land with these farmers, it would have great impacts from a climate perspective. And so we really see the big potential in reforestation through working with smallholder farmers. And with that vision, we really launched our first project in Nicaragua, which we call Community. And that project grew steadily over time. Sorry, I have something in my throat.
That tends to happen in winter, huh?
Yes, for sure. But yeah, we started with 40 farms and we have grown now to what you mentioned, Paige, of working with over 4,600 farmers and 17,000 hectares of land over that 15-year period. And we started small and we worked planning from everything with the project design and really working with spreadsheets, papers, probably even napkins at restaurants to really start the project. And we understood that really wasn't scalable. And so this is where our technology emerged, and it was really emerged out of our own operational needs as a project developer. So that's kind of our origin story of where we've gotten to date and what's behind the technology that we have.
Incredible. Thanks, Catherine. In those really early days, what we heard was that, I mean, the carbon market was brand new and people felt like they were really kind of buying air. What were the biggest challenges in getting both investors and farmers to trust that what you were starting to do was real?
No, very true that the carbon market was super nascent 15 years ago, and there was no shared understanding of what was really behind carbon credit and little precedents. And it was kind of like the wild, wild west, and with some really great organizations pushing it forward and trying to figure out how we can move this forward. But it's super important to understand that the carbon credit market was our means to an end. The sale of carbon wasn't our objective, it was to plant trees behind it. And the way we could do that and finance it was through the carbon markets. So, of course, working with smallholder farmers, our first step was building trust and understanding. Of course, to plant trees and to integrate them into the carbon market requires contracts, requires complications on that. And so the first few years was a lot of time of our CEO, Khalil, in the field working with these smallholder farmers. Our first farmers were around 20, and it was spent time building relationships, really understanding what brings value for them, also communicating and building that trust with farmers, and that's only over time that that's built. But quite quickly, neighbors started seeing farmers planting trees, which is quite rare in Nicaragua in the smallholder sense. And they started asking questions. So they started seeing the value that it was bringing to the farmers. And really, that's how our program has spread and grown over the years. And it's through word of mouth and seeing the value that it's creating for farmers. And now we're a national project operating in many of the different regions with multiple offices. And really, it's still through word of mouth is our biggest growth factor of bringing new participants on. So that trust factor is super important, and really designing the project for the farmers in a way that they see value of their participation. But on the market side, I'd say it's persistence. We generally believed in our model that growing trees with farmers, that creates a real value from them. And we stayed consistent to that vision. And we're really grateful for our early retail partners that shared that same vision, really pushed our project forward in our early days. And slowly, companies started to recognize what we were doing. And it was beyond carbon. It was also improving long-term benefits, showing the durability in our projects, in how we grew trees with farmers, as well as building climate resilience for these farmers and generating local employment in the regions that we were working. And so through that, we started building a strong network of retail partners that have been strong partners in communicating and getting our project out there. We've had the opportunity to really sell with some of the big players. Microsoft, Springer Nature, SAP have all purchased from Communitree, and we're really grateful for our partnership of these retail partners and corporates that really have pushed the project forward. And I think what continues our project to date is really trust in our delivery and our transparency. We have over 15 years of experience, and we're very open about what we do and how we do it with our different partners. And really that's enabled also through our technology. We're able to share and show how we're growing trees, and we have the data behind it to track and communicate that as well.
Thanks, Catherine. And actually, maybe it's worth making it really explicit very quickly. What's the value for smallholder farmers to grow trees on their farms?
Yeah, no, for sure. Great question. And so that's a first question that we ask when we start going in to develop these projects and design them. So it could be different on different reasons as to how we do it, but we look at small, medium, and long-term benefits, what brings it in. So the carbon system really drives, or bringing in the carbon revenue early on really drives those payment for ecosystem services that are really needed to establish forests in the early years to bring them out of their vulnerable periods. So paying for planting, paying for replanting or weeding, or those activities are enabled through the carbon revenue. But then if we look further out, we plant in systems that typically are planting more trees in their early years, where they can take advantage of that wood for their own self-consumption, like fence posts or firewood, or even the production of biochar, or in the local economy selling wood products as well. And long term, we move into sustainable forest management or harvesting. So they would selectively manage or harvest some of the high value timber. But of course, there's different models that we look at. We also look with cattle ranging, and we've done it with cacao in the past. So it's really to design that model, looking at these different horizons for them and what brings value.
Nice, really adaptable. And so yeah, let's dig into the technology and how you track all that. Graeme, that one's for you, I think. So yeah, please tell us a little bit more about what you've developed as a project developer to kind of make sense of your projects and how they develop. But you also manage thousands of different parcels. Before you had this technology, what were the biggest gaps or problems that you faced when you were trying to manage so many different separate farms at once? So double-pronged
It's a great,
question.
yeah, no, it's a great question, because it puts me back into the mindset of before I worked at Taking Root and in this industry. And I think it's a common misconception that I shared, that reforestation is planting trees, and planting trees is relatively easy. The reality is that it's not. We actually have to grow trees, and to do that, there's a bunch of complex activities associated with that. We have to source and prep land. We have to plant trees. We have to replant where appropriate. We have to keep up with weeding and pruning and thinning. And all of that management is really variable depending on species, geography, time of year, age of the parcel and the trees. And so you can kind of envision the snowballs as you scale and you add more land. And that land is at various stages and various years of its development. And so keeping track of this management over a growing set of parcels and area becomes wildly complex. And we didn't see any technology that allowed kind of the project management of these field teams to bring some formality to that, and be able to couple that with kind of the local nuances required to do the right interventions at the right times. And so that's kind of the like land management challenge that we had. And then there's the people side of things. You're growing and scaling a team of technicians at varying levels of experience in varying geographical locations. And without this kind of like shared knowledge set, individual practices can diverge, and the application of your kind of SOPs or your recipe can branch, and that becomes even more difficult to manage. So it's this kind of snowball effect of management. We want everyone working from the same playbook so that we can keep that same level of rigor, consistency, quality, and kind of have that stored in this internal memory that can be shared and used appropriately. And so I have a graphic to help contextualize for everyone. I'm going to share the map view from our application for the community project. You should be able to see it here. So this slide, what we're looking at in this view of the map, is approximately 50 parcels. And this is about 150 square kilometers. And you can kind of see the disparate nature of where they are, the topography, the access to these. But then when you zoom out to the countrywide, there's a little blue box that kind of highlights where we were looking at roughly. But you can see these thousands of parcels spread out across the country. And so it becomes a real scale problem of managing that land and those people. And we needed a platform fit for purpose. There's a second, whoops, sorry, I'll stop sharing for one moment. There's a second challenge, not just about the scalability in terms of quality and efficiency of the work, but equally important is about proving that the work we are doing is actually growing the trees. And so, in a market that rightly demands transparency, it's not enough to just say, hey, we're doing this work. We have to be able to demonstrate the outcomes of our work with evidence. And so the technology actually had to address both these challenges of the operational management, but also being able to manage forest growth and demonstrate forest growth. So from a credibility perspective, we needed to be able to provide clear reporting on things like tree survival, basal area, carbon sequestration. And we want that backed with data and evidence rather than assumptions. So the gap wasn't just in the monitoring of the trees, but it was in, I guess, an absence of a system that could help support the growth that we were trying to have with our forests, and then as well as that, the carbon that comes with that.
Amazing. And yes, very relatable from the pictures that you're showing. Is also meant to be a tool for people in the field. Can you walk us through a farmer's journey? I mean, sorry, I know something that the audience doesn't maybe is that the farmers using your technology and you have an app, and how does it help with things like signing them up, mapping their land, making sure they get paid as well? There's all this extra stuff.
Oh, I'm actually glad you said what you said. It's actually a common and understandable misconception that our app is used by farmers. Our app is currently used in support of farmers by technicians in the field. What you captured is the dream. I want, a platform that is so intelligent that we could guide anybody at any varying level of, silvicultural and agroforestry knowledge or carbon market expertise to participate. But today the app is a support tool for technicians who are supporting smallholder farmers in the program. And so it kind of helps in what I would break down to 3 phases. We have recruiting, which is getting farmers and land into the program. And so our technology actually allows us to add farmers to the platform who we are tracking as interested in the program. And they go through a series of gates that determines eligibility. So at the farmer level, there are things like proving, land ownership rights, land tenancy, and is it in the appropriate area? Are they, appropriately equipped to perform the activities required for success in the program? And once they've demonstrated that, we can kind of move into using our app to actually map the land on the ground. So technicians will take it and travel the perimeter of the property, which captures, a high quality, accurate polygon of the land. While allowing them to put eyes on the reality down there and make sure there aren't obstacles to planting or to growth. Once that's re-uploaded back to our platform, it generates sampling plots, which will be used for carbon monitoring, and does carbon calculations for an estimation of proposed carbon sequestration at that site. At the same time, it goes through other types of eligibility checking at kind of the landscape level. So a lot of that is standards compliance coupled with things that we know set us up for success. So that could be likelihood of flooding by proximity to rivers, but also things like pre-existing canopy cover, or making sure that there is historical degradation on the land so we can avoid things like perverse incentives to clear land to join the program. Once all of that happens, all those inputs are used to generate a contract, which kind of ties the co-investment payments that we'll make to the size of the land and the activities required. And they get that contract signed and then re-uploaded back to the platform, which serves as critical evidence for compliance and transparency. Once we have that, they are considered in the program. They've joined the program. And now they move into the next phase, which is like operational management. And so technicians are constantly going and tracking the activities that are taking place on a given piece of land. We call these work logs. Where a technician will show up with the farmer and kind of follow their restoration journey, tracking what activities have taken place, what's the progress of those activities, how complete is it across the property or the size of parcel that we're looking at. They upload photos as evidence, which are time and geotagged, so we can say, look, this photo was taken in the location that we said it was. We actually have over, I think, we're approaching 500,000 work logs in the community over the course of its history. And so that is 500,000 activities that we can verify have taken place in the project, which just feels feels quite a lot. And I'll maybe quickly share
Something to say.
when we talk about operational management, one moment for me to share again. There's tons of ways that we can use this data, and we're constantly learning more. But one of the things that is brought to us is this kind of operational maturity. This is one of many dashboards that our operations teams use, but what it helps us visualize is over the course of a season, what types of activities are taking place and how are they progressing against our expectations. So in this particular month of July, 22,500 activities were recorded across the program. And you can kind of see the spread. So as expected in July, most of those activities were planting or replanting activities or weeding activities, since we're right in peak season. But we can see that there's still some pre-planting taking place here and some nursery activities, which is indicative that those would be a little bit behind schedule by July, we would assume. And so it allows our team to dig in and figure out where that's taking place so we can make sure we encourage those activities to happen in a more timely manner. And as the season progresses, you can see the shift in activities away from planting and into things like weeding or thinning, depending on the age of the parcel. Many, many ways to slice and dice that data, but just kind of one example of the operational maturity that knowing what's happening on the ground allows us to do. And then really quickly, lastly, the third bucket is about the verification. So being able to use our app to go into the field with monitoring teams and actually measure individual trees and use that to prove that we are hitting our carbon targets or our growth targets.
Lovely. And you've obviously, like a lot of people in this space, moved from tracking to kind of optimizing the projects and using AI to give your technicians better advice on how to evolve. How do you help them become expert foresters or improve their processes as the time goes on?
Yeah. So in the early days, the technology was really just data collection for evidence. So it didn't really help that much at all in terms of understanding what needed to happen or how it should happen. We've progressed beyond that into what I would call more of like a reporting phase, where we start to collect this data and, as I kind of demonstrated, build dashboards around some intelligence. What's taking place? How is that tracking against what should be taking place? Starting to give some guidance on whether a particular technician or a particular piece of land is behind where we should be in terms of activities according to our proposed schedule. The natural progression is that we move from this kind of pull model of information to a push model of information. And we are in development of AI-driven recommendation models or engines that kind of sit on top of the knowledge and the data points that we've collected to date to really help identify proactively what activities should be happening and predict where are areas where technicians can apply activities to have the most impact or the most necessary activities at the right time. And so as we kind of progress with this functionality, it'll allow us to identify patterns, help technicians make decisions about where to prioritize their work. So as we scale, it's not just about adding more land and adding more trees, but it's about really keeping that quality bar high. And the best way we can do that is providing more guidance and more direction to those who can apply it on the ground.
Absolutely. Thanks. And Katherine, I think I want to bring back in here, and this is a question for both of you, but as the market evolves and tries to look beyond carbon, how's your technology helping you track other benefits, essentially? Whether that's biodiversity or economic benefits.
Do you want me to start, Katherine?
You can jump on. Yeah, go for
sure.
it.
Let me take that, and then you can supplement where I fall short. I think we think of what we're building technology-wise as like an evidence-based database for a project. And so as we collect this data, we are collecting things like carbon outcomes. We're collecting our operational delivery activities, but also socioeconomic participation. As we go out and do our tree monitoring, we're collecting tree species and kind of understanding the diversity of the generation that's happening there. But since we're building kind of a holistic image of a project and the impact, we recognize that there's a lot of opportunity, and we're having ongoing discussions to understand how the platform could support including further biodiversity related data where it would be appropriate, and how we could capture that, consistently and in a reportable and auditable way. And since we've kind of laid this foundation, being able to collect more types of information that provide further evidence to things beyond the carbon, whether that is, various forms of biodiversity. Sometimes, we'll have conversations about soil, water, fauna impacts. And so if we could work towards capturing more of that and storing it in this database, it will allow us to connect more of the dots and tell more of this restoration story. And we think we have the foundation to do that. And it's now just making the investments into collecting the right data for that.
All right. So yeah, as we move on to maybe hopefully the last 5 minutes here, I wanted to get in just a little bit more into the quality and integrity piece of all of this. And so, Katherine, companies obviously want to know that their investment is high quality. How does your tech and your 15 years of experience make sure that carbon credits are reliable and long lasting as well?
No, I think you called out. I think one of the advantages that we have is we also have 15 years of experience of learning as we go and adjusting. And I think what is backed by everything is our value proposition, is what is behind is durability in our projects, and we can actually show the progress that we've had in our different systems. But it all goes back to what we talked to in the beginning is we know that we can only ensure durability where the people managing the land actually want the trees there. And so everything goes back to our theory of change that goes on that. And we've been very successful in that. We have the data behind that to really do that. I think one of the uniqueness that we have also in it is we work through a co-investment model. So we design these projects with farmers that make sense for ways that they want trees. And then they are the stewards of the land in managing the land going forward. That really enables the durability in our projects. We don't purchase land or lease land, which is common in the industry. We work with those land stewards in a way that works beyond the carbon market. So from a durability perspective, I think that is one of the core reasons or the value proposition that we have behind it. But I also think from an operational rigor perspective, I think a lot of what you heard from Graeme speaking shows that growing trees is just not planting the trees. There's so much more behind it. And all the work that we do in combining working with our implementation partners in the field, as well as our technology that is really purpose-driven for that process, really enables us to ensure that longevity of the trees and really support where it's needed most in the field. And I think lastly is more so on transparency and, as Graeme mentioned, verification. We really can show trees are growing in the ground. And I think this is what really builds the trust and what is our value proposition back to our clients in the industry as well, and what makes our projects stand out from there.
How do you share that story with your corporate clients?
Yeah, and so as Graeme mentioned, kind of like the aspects that we measure is we have so much data behind what we do, everything from the payments that we pay out to the farmers to all the activities that we do in the field. Yeah. And so we can use that in numerous different ways to communicate with our partners. But what we regularly do is we do quarterly updates as to what's happening in the field within our projects. We're committed to an annual report that is attached with an impact report that really ties and also communicates how their investment has had an impact. And so we can tailor it to the investor on that side of things too. And then also we go through every 5 years a third-party audit that really validates and verifies the work that we're doing in the field. And all that information is publicly available, and it's also enabled through the technology that we have to be able to share the information, the details on that side of things. And I guess lastly, and it's always open to our clients, is of course there's one thing of showing data, and I don't know if Graeme even shared, like we also take pictures of the trees and they're located where they are. So it actually shows up. But I think one other aspect is really bringing people and our clients to the projects that we have in the field. And that's always open a door as well, is to also show those that are interested in the credits actually what's happening in the field too, which brings them a little bit more closer to the project.
Okay, and so now to kind of close this part, the fireside chat, maybe just one last question for both of you. Just to recap, you've grown from 41 hectares to over 17,000 hectares. That's humongous. You can see the distribution of it. And what's the next big goal or piece of tech that's going to help you, become one of the largest forest reforestation organizations in the world?
Well, maybe I can start us off. I think you called out what our dream is and where we want to go, Paige, correctly, as us wanting to be one of the largest reforesters in the world. And what we know also with that is we want to make sure that quality scales with quantity. And that's super important to hold that integrity to our projects. And we've grown from that 41 hectares to the 17,000 hectares. And it was intentional, not accidental. And so what's important for us is that we are growing the right trees in the right places for the right incentives as well. And so that also means growing beyond. We've talked a lot about our project in Nicaragua because that's our flagship where we started, but that also means growing beyond community and our project in Nicaragua, where we also have pilots in different countries, and more recently within Chile as well, growing on that side of things. But as for a technology perspective, I'll let Graeme jump in to respond to that.
From the technology perspective, we're going to support that goal of keeping that quality bar high as we enable scale. So not just get more land and trees in the program, but make sure they meet the bar that we have set for ourselves, even from the early days. And so we did kind of mention it earlier, but I think the next big tech investment is about bringing this proactive intelligence and allowing us to be able to scale the program and making the right activities happen or the right interventions happen at the right time, so that we can see successful growth across the board. I think it's really important just to note that we are pretty clear-eyed that technology, the way we use technology, isn't meant to replace people. We actually view technology as kind of an amplification of existing experience, and we use it for helping those in the ground apply more context and apply their expertise in the best and most efficient way. We use it to help foster and grow the relationships that we have, and we use it to help maintain the integrity of the project as the complexity increases. And so bringing some of that standardization and rigor to that on the ground expertise. And that's the lens we'll continue to use in our technology growth going forward. And so maybe with that, as you mentioned, some of our aspirations include being one of the biggest, reforesters in the world. But the way we think we can achieve that is by having a wider and broader impact. And one of the ways we think we can do that is potentially our technology can assist others attempting to do similar things as us, or in similar, but not necessarily the same contexts. And so something I just wanted to make sure I shared is that, while our platform has really been built to support the types of projects we've been involved in, we are very curious about how it could be applicable in the wider industry and the wider market. And so, for anybody listening or at any time going forward, if anybody has any ideas about how they think what we've developed could benefit their contexts or their projects, we would absolutely love to dive further into individuals and companies with that, and explore what that might look like as well.
Well, thank you both. And yeah, Graeme, don't hesitate to drop in those contact details again for anyone who might have arrived later in the session. And yeah, I'll now let the audience question you. So wonderful audience here. We're gonna allow you to unmute yourselves now at this point. I'm gonna go back to the gallery of faces, at least in my view. And I think we already have one question from Asko Kopi. from Final Yards. Are you still there? Yes. And do you mind potentially coming on camera and asking that question out loud? One more minute. Otherwise, I'll just read it. So, how's the biodiversity in Nicaragua? For example, the picture on Graeme's background looks like a plantation. What ratio are you helping seed plantation to diverse forest? Oh, there you are. Hi.
I can, do you want to add anything to that, or do you want me to jump into the response?
We can't hear you, so maybe Katherine, yeah, just go ahead.
For sure. No, for sure. Each region that we work in has a different biodiversity as to what we're looking at. Within the system that you see there is we plant in our planting design around 4 to 6 different species in the ground. But of course, what Graeme also mentioned, the intention is to really start and protect that area to build out a forest from there. And it has different stages as to how it'll grow. And so this is also where we record and encourage other species development within the forestry systems too. And I believe, Graeme, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've had over 110 other species recorded within our system as to showing diversity within the systems as well from there.
Yeah, I think that's right. If there's something, I don't know the exact number, but it's over 100 species have been recorded just in our monitoring sampling plots. I think the other thing, just to supplement Katherine's answer, our planting designs, the species that we use and the designs that we come up with are developed in collaboration with local farming communities. And so that we have actually really great photos of different kind of ways that we've developed surveys and questionnaires to work directly with farmers to see what they would like on their property and make sure that we're planting a balance of what they think will be important or useful for them with what will work from a carbon model perspective as well.